Hello, everybody. I am so excited to come back to doing podcasts. And I have to say, I'm a little bit nervous. I haven't done it for a little while. We put out 100 episodes, and I look to see, like, what is it that's happening and where am I going with this podcast and what am I doing and who am I having? And I just felt a break was needed, but I'm super excited to be coming back. And it doesn't seem like I could come back with a better person than a person that talks about this whole process of birth and death and those points in between. And because it's really, in some ways, I put the podcast to sleep. In some ways, I was thinking, this is now over. And I probably won't do it again. But somehow when I met her, and I met her through a company that I used to work with, Hay House. And she was doing a seminar, like an afternoon talk or a workshop or something on Hay House. And I thought, I'm just going to listen to her. And there was something about you, Ellen, which really touched me. And it still does. There is a technical part of you that is really beautiful, where you sort of know intellectually what is going on. And there's a heart part of you that is really exquisite, that just wouldn't matter if the technical stuff was there or not, because you just feel your heart and you feel, and you just, and I just immediately trusted you. And you speak on some areas that are really quite profound. And they're areas that a lot of people do not speak on. In our society today, there's only a few things that we know everyone is going to experience. And yet one of them we're very scared to talk about in general. And that's the process of death. I've experienced a lot of death in my life. A lot of family, people have passed. My wife has passed. My parents passed when I was a kid. So death is not a stranger to me in the way it is to many. But I really want to honor you and support you and lift you up with kudos. To say to be a death doula in this time. And I love the way you say it on your website, which is, I walk with you as you bravely enter the death portal of your life transitions. We work holistically across physical, emotional, and spiritual bodies, using tools like breathwork, inner child, somatic, root healing, micro and macrodose journeying, and spiritual altar work. And I just want to say how beautiful you are. And what an honor it is to be able to spend some time with you and experience it, because the death that you speak of is, of course, has to do with the finality of this moment where we're in this body and we're here. But there's also many deaths we live and die in the course of a day. John the Baptist said, "I die daily," and you just feel that sense of, gosh, boy, I'm going through a time where who I was is no longer who I am. That's a death of sorts. So let me read your bio just so. I think I did a little bit. I touched base, but I just don't want to lose anything. As a Shandong-Taiwanese-American entheogenic death and grief companion, I walk with you as you bravely enter the death portals of your life transitions. We work holistically across the physical, emotional, and spiritual bodies, using tools like breathwork, inner child somatic root healing, micro and macro journey, macrodose journeying, and spiritual altar work. I am currently a resident facilitator for DoubleBlind Magazine, a leading voice in the psychedelic movement. In April 2018, I left from my career as an executive creator director in digital marketing to co-create Soul Care Company. We Are All Daughters, followed by the Woo New podcast. In 2019, platforming stories of transition of health with a personal passion to uplift all voices. In 2019, she received her certification for breathwork. And, I'm going to put all this here so you can see who the people she learned with are. She learned sound healing, and she learned shamanic and animistic practices through a 1.5-year long mystery mentorship program with shamanic practitioner Mimi Young. Exploring shamanic journeying and tarot and psychic development, chaos magic, plant spring healing, and ancient Chinese mysticism. In 2021, she completed her psychedelic sitters intensive program with Daniel McQueen, author of Psychedelic Cannabis, Breaking the Gate, and founder of the Center for Medicinal Mindfulness. It goes on and on. So I don't want to get bogged down in the credentials, because suffice it to say, the woman that we're sitting with today has the knowledge, has the understanding, and has the heart to take you on a journey, should you choose to. And I'm going to choose to, by the way, to open up your heart and open up your mind and open up your soul. So, with all that being said, how the heck are you? Welcome to the Mosaic Podcast.
Thank you so much, Danny. I've been waiting for this conversation for a while. And so it just feels really good just to be able to sit with you. Even though we're in a virtual space, it still feels like you're right here with me. And I
Yes.
feel you so deeply. And I just have to reflect in real time right now as you're reading my bio out to me, which I don't know if I've ever actually experienced that before. So I'm actually reading the words I put down as describing who I am. And I just realized that the whole bio is like one death after another, after another, after another, after another. The whole thing is like a celebration of deaths and births. And I don't think I quite realized that until I heard it back to me. So thank you for that. It kind
Oh
of
my
hit
God.
me.
Thank you for that. I mean, and so with that being said, it's sort of obvious with that being said and that understanding, but the fact that you haven't even heard that understanding until this moment, right? And this is what happens. There are these breakthroughs that happen. These are things, I mean, clearly, you wrote all this stuff, but there are moments where we're sitting together with somebody and something gets drawn out of us. And I want to encourage the people who are watching this, not only to watch it, but to feel it. Because there is something happening in the space between these words. There's so much love right here in this conversation, in this room. There's so much knowledge. There's so much freedom. There's so much opportunity to take another step. How did you get into death? Like, how did that happen?
I feel like death is one of those things, very much like medicine, that chooses you. And I just have to share that even as of November of last year, November 2022, I still did not know that I was being initiated or chosen for this particular path. I think it comes when you experience death at a young age. And I'm a big believer that the wounds that you have or that you experience in your life, the wounds that you carry in your body, that really shape your life. are truly the portals to your superpowers and your reason for being in this body in this lifetime. And I don't think I really understood that until probably in the last few years. But my father passed when I was 15, and he died suddenly. I guess it wasn't so suddenly, but he got sick. And it turns out, and this is something I didn't find out until just earlier this year, like over 30 years later, that it was the H1N1 virus, which I
Oh,
thought was
wow.
really interesting. This happened in 1992. So back when H1N1 was very, just not known, and it happened in Taiwan. And so I remember, we were in the hospital, and there was a small window in which I can look into his room. And at the moment where he was leaving his body, all the doctors rushed in with the paddles and they were trying to revive. And, my brother and I were just outside that window witnessing it, and obviously just crying and just bawling our eyes out. But um, we're witnessing the chaos that was happening inside that room. And really nobody, knew what to do. And it was finally my mother who told the doctors, like, just let him go, and she got to say goodbye. She was inside the room. I, being, I think, 15, I was just way too terrified
Yeah.
and overtaken by emotion to actually be there, like right by his side. Um, and I think about that a lot too, because, if I could have a redo, not that I think it would have played out exactly the way it did, but there's a part of me that does wish that I had the courage to be right there next to him, holding his hand as he, took his final breath. And so I think in going through my life, this grief that I carried from his death really shaped me. And it shaped me in a way that, it was more from the fact that I couldn't really express my grief openly. He died on a Thursday. My brother and I were in Taiwan. We flew back to Houston, where I grew up, on Sunday. I was back in school by Monday.
Wow.
And that was my choice. That was totally my choice. And there was a belief that I had, again at 15, um, that, just get on with life as usual. And, this thing that happened that completely changed your life is just going to, over time, heal itself. It's just going to,
Yeah.
fade into the background. And my mother, being now a single mom and holding it down for all of us, my brother and I did the best that she could, and she put on that brave face. And I don't think I really ever saw her cry except the day it happened, the day he passed, and also one moment at the funeral. And so her grief was also very much behind closed doors. And as a family of three now, we just didn't really share our grief openly. So I would be going to, the cemetery to visit him often. Um, Finally got my license to drive. So I was now, I had the freedom to be able to go wherever I wanted to. So I spent a lot of the next couple of years in high school just going to parks, going to the cemetery, grieving on my own, and just being with my feelings, and not really able to fully express it. And I remember this one moment. It was the first week I got back to school, and I had one particular English teacher who was, I loved her so much. Her name's also Ellen, and she held me back after class one day, and it was again that first week I got back to school, and she kind of like grabbed my shoulders and she sort of shook me a little bit, and she was asking me like, how are you doing, with all this that happened. And she was the only teacher that really acknowledged what had
Wow.
happened, and they had all gotten the memo. But I, put on this happy face, like this smile. I was like, I'm good, I'm okay, I promise. And she just gave me this very skeptical look, and you know was just telling me, like, you have to feel it, you have to let yourself grieve, you have to go through this. And the reason I think that I had this sort of mask on is because it was the very first moment I had actually gone back to school. That Monday, I had encountered a friend in the hallway, and he looked so scared to see me. And he was
Wow.
able to mutter out this, "I'm sorry," and just race out of the hallway. And that feeling I had, his discomfort,
Yeah.
and just mixed with my almost, it was like a mixture of embarrassment and um, sadness, obviously, and just like nobody, I don't want anybody to feel this way in front of me. Like, I don't want people to feel sad when they're with me. I don't want my grief, my sadness, everything I'm going through to rub off on me,
Totally.
rub off of me onto them.
Totally.
I have to keep it together. And so that's really what was going through me this entire time. And it slowly, became this very firmly crystallized mask that I would just wear throughout my life, that I really started to believe I was okay. And it's funny the way life just kind of throws you all these different opportunities to show you, like, actually, you're not
Yeah.
really that okay. And the mask starts to crack in different ways. And, you do certain things to escape and to numb it out. And that was my story. I numbed out with every substance, possible. I escaped into work, became a super workaholic, very successful creative
Yes.
director. But, I think I hit a point finally in 2017 when I got married and had this glorious honeymoon in, Japan. Took a month off because I knew that was the only excuse I had to take that long of a time off work. And I remember coming back into work finally when I got back and just thrown right back into the fire. And my entire body was just like completely constricted. And I was starting to experience shortness of breath as I commuted to work, you know. And so I've never been somebody, thankfully, who has dealt with extreme anxiety or
Yes.
extreme depression, just kind of your daily stresses and things like that. But I was hitting a point now where my body was literally responding to something that I didn't know, except I just thought it was stress work, or work stress, sorry. And so I began to meditate and meditate in the way that I knew how to, which was through an app and just sit and quietly breathe. Um, and I finally made the decision after a very profound tarot reading, my first ever in Joshua Tree in 2017. I decided to quit my career and go into something that to me felt more heart centered and altruistic, which was to create the soul care company. But all of this time, like in creating that company, I really believe that it was my dad working in the background,
Yeah.
working from the other side, kind of guiding me along. And through building this company with a colleague of mine, I was introduced to all these different modalities, breath work, especially being one of them. And in one particular breathwork session that fall, I came face to face with my dad's spirit. He told me that he didn't want me to be in pain anymore and that he didn't want me to carry this heaviness. I didn't even realize the heaviness I was carrying,
Yeah.
but it was in me. And there's just so much grief that was brought to the surface from that particular breathwork session,
Wow.
which then guided me into breathwork. I knew I needed to do breathwork. I knew I needed to be certified like a breathwork coach because it completely, in that one session, already transformed my life. And again, I just feel like the universe just kind of takes you down this really interesting road, guided by your healed ancestors, where the following year I got introduced to the sacred mushroom in a healing capacity. I started microdosing with a life coach, and then I started to do macrodose journeys with my husband in this place that I now live in, Idlewild, California, of all places. I'd never been here before. And that March, when we celebrated our second anniversary, we decided to journey together. And for 5 hours, I just cried and cried and cried, scribbled like mad in my journal. And the next day, when I read back to me myself, like what I had written, the words, "It's so hard to know, or it's so scary to know who you really are," came
Wow.
kind of hitting, it came flooding back to me. And I realized that breath work, the sacred mushroom, these different medicines were really all helping me to excavate and meet and befriend my grief. And so I think in walking with the sacred mushroom, walking with my breath, and holding these spaces for healing for other people, I started to really heal myself, which finally, it's almost, again, I feel like the universe was preparing me for the next evolution, the next, death and rebirth, which was to go into death doula training.
Wow.
And that's when I realized, oh, wow, okay, I now see the road behind me that had led me up to this point. And there was no way I could have just jumped right into death doula work, from where I was. I needed to really heal and also come to a new relationship with my grief, which by now I realize it's a lifelong friend. Grief is going to be with me until the very end. And I'm actually so thankful now. It's completely changed my perspective and my relationship with this energy. I think before I spent so much of my life escaping grief and feeling it.
Yeah,
And
thinking grief
now,
is bad.
yeah, thinking it's bad, thinking
Yeah.
it's something that needs to go away, that I need to quote unquote heal from. And now I just receive it. I accept grief, and it very much is a companion in my life. And it just makes me realize how much love flows from and to me through this grief. And it comes through in these like very, very interesting moments, um, when I least expect it, particularly the grief that I still have in my dad's death. But also, we experience grief every single time we say goodbye to something in our life. Every single, every single time, my career shift in particular, I don't think I realized how much I would grieve that, because
Yeah.
my entire identity was so wrapped up in who I was as a creative director. But there's grief in that. There's a grief in every time I say goodbye to my mom when I visit her. And so I've just kind of come to realize that grief is just someone to treasure, actually, in our lives.
I think what you're saying is so absolutely important, um, both from a personal standpoint and from a global standpoint. I lost my dad when I was 13 years old.
Mm.
And my mom and dad were so in love that my mom died 2 years later on the same day at exactly the same time. So when I
Wow.
was 15 years old. So at the age of 15, I had lost both my parents. Um, and I'll never forget the beauty of God's hand, even in my most trying moment. Because somehow we grew up in a lower middle class family. My dad tried as hard as he could, but he just wasn't really good with money. He spent everything plus things that he didn't have to get us what everybody else had because he wanted to be an okay dad. When they passed away, it just so happens my mom's sister married a man who's a household name. And they were in a different state in the middle of the country. We were on the East Coast, they were in the Midwest. We really weren't that friendly with them. And suddenly I went from a lower middle class family to living with one of the elite families in the country. And I got to see another world, which was amazing. And what I like about your approach and the way you do it is that every death is really a birth and is really a beginning as well. And so it's so important to let grief be my friend. Like I feel like I haven't let grief be my friend. I feel like I still have grief in me that I've been, because I'm a guy, you just bury it down and you don't look at it, and you look at it every once in a while and you say, oh my God. And so that was a lot of years ago. And I just want people to rewind and listen to what Ellen said. And I want you to just feel like she's talking to you right now. Forget about a podcast. I want you to have the experience that I had, because there aren't many people that are doing this work, at least that I know of. And so if through the course of this conversation, and this was never meant to be a, commercial for Ellen, but I just feel so safe in guiding you into her arms. And if you feel that, and if you have grief, all the information to get in touch with her will be in the show notes. Don't worry about that. We don't have to list everything here and how they're going to do it. We'll get it in the show notes. So let's get back. I don't guess that this is a one and done, that you get to that place where you experience the grief and you look at it then, and then it's all gone. Or is it a one and done?
No, it definitely is not. It was funny. It's coming to mind. Last year, I got the opportunity to work with a teacher out in the Cascades in Washington. And her name is Marika Clymer, and she goes by the energetic ecologist, energy healer. And we drove out to a meadow, and she had me work with yarrow as a plant spirit. And she picked one little, stalk of yarrow, and had me just walk down the path and just be with yarrow. And this is last year. I had gotten to a place where, after probably the first couple of years of deep grief work, I was able to meet my dad's death anniversary with a lot more openness and joy. And so I would say that when it comes to my father, like, the grief I felt for him, the acute grief, what had already started to dissipate, a few years before. But as I walked with yarrow, I took a little piece of the leaf and, put it on my tongue. And I was just holding her spirit in my mouth and just walking with her, witnessing the trees and the plants around me. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this wave of grief just came out. And I just started crying and missing my father, his physical form, like, so badly. And I continued to just walk and cry and be with this plant spirit that was essentially bringing this up to the surface for me. And I had no idea, what I was supposed to experience. I didn't know what I was supposed to expect, but sure enough, it was just like so much. It, like, almost to the point where it felt like he had just died like a week before.
Wow.
And then I got to this one little corner of the walk where there were these huge trees on both sides, and they almost kind of made almost like a corridor, like a hall. And suddenly this download, this, like, knowing that every leaf on every one of these trees, there was this beautiful breeze that was blowing. I saw butterflies around as well. Every single one of these beings, every single cell of one of these beings holds my dad, holds my grandmother, holds my, every one of my ancestors that have passed. And another fresh round of tears came just at that knowing. It was almost like my heart burst open in realizing that they are here with me in physical form, just not in the form that they used to take, but they are literally here with me. And a gust of wind came through. And that's always when I know that my ancestors are here with me. They kind of speak through the wind. And it was just so shocking and surprising, delightfully so, that this beautiful plant yarrow could bring so much wisdom and experienced wisdom with just being with her, literally walking with her in my hand, holding her on my tongue.
How beautiful.
And so I turned to yarrow actually as a companion for grief, as a yeah.
It's so interesting because I'm watching myself as you're speaking, and I'm like the great white knight sort of guy. I ride in on my horse and everything's okay. And I smile and I make people feel happy and I do whatever I do. And I watch myself sort of just ride in and want to hold you and hug you and bring you up on my horse and just ride out with you and just say, it's okay. And then I see which I really value in this conversation. I see your strength in the dialogue that we're not having, that I'm having with you, that I am having, saying, no, that's okay. I want to just hold you and let you experience your grief.
Mm.
And so there's this sort of gentle hug that is having mixed purposes, but is serving all of the possible components. And I just want to thank you for holding me in that way, to introduce the idea that it's okay to feel this grief.
Mm.
And I wonder how many people out listening really have given themselves permission to grieve. And it's not even permission. It's like, I think we've given ourselves permission to grieve, but it's just this, almost this love affair
Mm-hmm.
with everything that's happening around us. So it begs a question to me that I would love to hear your thoughts on. Is there a moment in time where that grief can dissipate and go away? And have you felt that? Have you experienced that? Like, I know intellectually it sounds like to me, yeah, there's a moment in time where I don't need to carry this around with me anymore. But I'm still holding on to some pain that I felt from my dad leaving and my mom leaving, and that was 45 years ago.
Yeah.
So
It's such a beautiful question that I feel like I think if had you asked me this even 5 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, of course, there's got to be a moment that goes away, right? There's got to be. Why are we doing this healing work if there isn't, right? And now where I'm sitting, I want to say, it's like I want to ask, like, why do you want to let it go?
yeah,
Why let go of that remembrance, that every time you feel that little bit of pain, or maybe sometimes it's a lot of pain, sometimes it's a tidal wave, that pain reminds us of how much we are connected and how much we love these people in our lives, these beings, these animals, these, plants, these trees. I was grieving this tree that lived outside of my loft in Los Angeles as much as I was grieving a lost, human relative that just happened 2 years ago. The the connection, the love that we share never goes away. That cord is still very much there. And so whenever I feel my grief and I feel my heart break open, to me it's a reminder that I'm alive, I'm human. I can love so deeply that it hurts, you know? And I think there's a lot of truth when you think about pain riding alongside the same, you know, the same in the same cars, like as pleasure, right? Pain and pleasure go together. Grief and joy actually go together too.
mm,
And so every time I experience grief, there's always joy right there. It's like, I think as soon as I stopped resisting grief, the grief turned into a bittersweetness. There's sweetness there that I could finally taste.
mm,
That wasn't, I was, almost kind of like, no, I don't want it, before, because I didn't want the bitter. And I didn't realize that in withholding myself from the bitter, I wouldn't be able to get the sweetness also. And I
yeah,
think that's the point of grief. You don't really get to experience the kind of joy that, expansive, like full bodied, beautiful joy if you don't also allow yourself to hold and feel that really deep, and I call it watery. It's like kind of sinking down to the bottom of the ocean sometimes, but that deep, deep grief that you can also hold. to me, it's two sides of one coin, and that coin is love.
So I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it because I don't think I know the answer to the question. Have you seen people get so lost in that grief that they can't find their way out?
Yeah.
And it's part of the work you do, helping to bring them out?
Yeah, that is, I feel like in some ways what I experienced personally was that being lost, but it's not being lost in feeling the grief, it was being lost in resisting it. So I
Yeah.
think it could work both ways, right? I think getting lost in feeling the grief, to me, it's all about titration, allowing yourself to feel it and to honor it, but then always coming out and allowing yourself the joy and the gratitude for how deeply you are feeling and everything that still surrounds you here in this life, everything that allows you to experience your human embodied, gift.
Yeah.
And when you're so caught up in the grief of it, the life will never be the same. It's going to be completely like, yeah, life won't ever be the same. And what I like to help people witness is there's beauty in the fact that life will never be the same.
Yeah.
I think, as you said before, with every single death that we experience, whether it's the loss of somebody or, a big life transition, moving from one phase of your life into the next, saying goodbye to one thing over another, parts of your identity, I feel like there is always that birth, right? So I think in holding grief and allowing yourself to feel it, it's always the duality that we are needing to open ourselves up to. So feeling the intense grief also allows you to feel the expansive joy to that degree as well. So what I like to guide people through are meditations and visualizations to connect to those higher frequencies. And it's not to ignore or to, resist the grief that you feel, but it's also to be able to feel the full spectrum of it.
Yeah.
Because again, grief isn't just one side.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, which I'm not sure I am, but I just want to clarify, the work you're doing, because it sounds like at some points you're just working with the the liberation of the grief.
Mm-hmm.
But I really feel like somehow intuitively, I have no idea what you do. I have no, this is our first time having a really real conversation. But somehow I feel like I deeply know you, and I could be all wrong in this. So please don't, cushion it. Just say, no, Danny, that's 100% wrong what you're saying. I feel like there's something magical when the freeway has no traffic on it, between the experience of deep grief and the experience of unbridled joy.
Mm-hmm.
And that highway, that freeway, is so rich. And each starting point and ending point, or middle point, or whatever you want to call it, it's not really a start and end, but each side of that gives totality to the other side of it. That's what I feel you're saying.
Yeah.
And for those people who then shun grief aside, is it any wonder that we don't find people having extreme joyful experiences? Because when we shut down one side of it, we systematically shut down the other side of it, which is what we want.
Exactly. Yes. 1,000% yes. Yeah, exactly. This is why, not to totally get off topic, but when I work with people who are on antidepressants and medications and they're trying to titrate off of that, they often come because they have reached a point where they've been so reliant on the medication that's become numbing.
Yeah.
So their baseline, maybe they don't feel that depression or the anxiety as acutely as they did before, but they also don't feel the joy.
Yeah, totally, totally.
Yeah.
Um, if people don't hear anything except what we just said, this would be very valuable time for you in your life, just to understand that concept, that the more we block out one, we block out the other. And they're tied together, they're linked together, they're a part of one another. So you can't have one without the other, right? That's that also.
Exactly.
and and along with that, and I'm just assuming because I haven't done the work in this as much as I would like to. I mean, I've done some of it, but I really want to talk to you afterwards about doing some work together. But I would assume that there's such beauty when we allow ourselves to experience the experience we're experiencing,
Mm-hmm.
rather than, no, I'm not experiencing this, I really want to experience that. And I know I've spent lots of years of my life in that place. No, I have the power, I have willpower, I have choice, I don't have to feel this, I'm going to choose to put this, not feel this, and feel this. Well, guess what? If this conversation is true, and it has so much truth in it that I can't feel any way other, systematically my whole being has changed. If it's true that one is linked to the other, then the more we cut off one, the more we cut off the other. So it's not possible to have extreme joy without having tasted extreme sorrow.
Absolutely. Yeah. I
Is-
very much believe that. And
Wow.
so to me, what we need to learn, the tools that we need to learn are tools that allow us to sit with that extreme sadness or extreme pain. How do we sit with it and breathe through it? How do we allow that to just be in our bodies? To me, I feel like this is where somatic modalities, really allowing yourself to simply observe what the sensations are. I think some people choose to do this through meditation, which is a beautiful way up that mountain. For me, learning transpersonal energy healing was my way of being able to be with my feelings and notice. I think we live in a time right now where so many of us are so highly intellectual that
Yes.
we've lost connection to our bodies.
Yeah.
And so it's about relearning and restoring that kinship between our spirit and our bodies. Our bodies are not, you know, these these throwaway kind of apparatuses, like they actually they are truly your ultimate life partner, more so than even your life partner, your chosen life
Totally,
partner.
totally.
And so you have to learn how to listen and be with what your body's telling you and what you're feeling.
One of my big shortcomings is I haven't done that, because I've just overworked. I used to be a weightlifter and a runner, and I would push myself to run, you know, um, 25 miles a day,
Wow.
every day, and it would go, sometimes it would go to 18, but then it would go to 40. And I would go to the gym, and I would bench press 345 pounds, and I was like, I'm gonna get this body working to be the perfect body. It's having its last laugh on me now. And what I hear from you, which is really so refreshing, is this respect for all life, for all situations. And I don't want to put you on the spot, and I'm not challenging you, but I just, because I really feel you, and I just trust you. are you able to do that? Are you able to have that respect for everything and to live? Because I'm thinking of, Joe Blow and that's going to listen to this.
Yeah.
And it sounds so beautiful, but it also sounds like it sounds unattainable to me. And I've been in this for 45 years.
I like to think of everything now. It's a great question. I'm so glad that you're asking this because it's also something I need to sit with myself, and I've been sitting with it this year alone. I just recently wrote this post on Instagram about sacred reciprocity and what that means. What does it mean to be in right relationship? And I think that's really what the core or the crux of this question is about. For me, it's all about energy. It's about the energy that flows through you, giving and receiving, giving and receiving. And so when you are wired like people like me, I'm an overgiver. I have a tendency
Yeah, me
to
too.
deplete. Yeah, okay. I sense that about you too. And it's very loving. It comes from a place of love, right? But there's also a wound there, a need for validation, a need for affirmation, for love, that we are trying to receive through our overgiving. And so we deplete ourselves, we burn out, we reach this point where like we become resentful sometimes, we're not getting enough back. And so being in right relationship is coming back to a place of balance where what I give is from a place first and foremost of honoring my own energetic capacity. And so that requires me to receive enough energy back to fill me back up. So you see this energy flowing out and also this energy flowing in. And to me, that's really what respecting all beings is all about.
I love
How,
that.
you know,
And are you able to, do that? Like for me, I do that, but I probably do that maybe, I'm going to be generous to myself, 65% of the time.
well, what is perfect, right? There's
Right.
no such thing.
There is no,
So
but
it's
like
all about
growing that
intention.
into something that we really do. Because like one of the things that I really like about you is you don't just talk about things.
Mhm.
Like it's easy to have all the right answers. And so many people, myself included, for so many years, knew all the right answers. Right. But the right answers don't do anything except get us an A on the exam, but they don't get us a job. They don't get us money. They don't get us health. They don't get us anything.
Yeah,
And what's real is what's real.
yeah.
And as I've grown older, I've sort of been able to sit with, hold it, I really don't care what the right answer is.
Mm-hmm.
What I want to know is this working in my system?
Yeah.
Like, can I receive this? Can I practice this? Can I fall down and lean on this to get back up again? And hundreds of thousands of times can I do that? Because
Mm-hmm.
that seems to be my way, to get excited, go out running and fall right down. And then get excited, go out running, and fall down. But then over time, I've realized certain things are there to help me stand up.
Mm.
Um, so, but I want to know where you're at. Like I'm bored with knowing where I'm at.
I think it's when you say like it's not so much about the answers, I agree with you because I think it's more about the questions that you're asking at every moment, you know?
Yes.
Like with everything, like for instance, I'm gonna after this make myself a meal. I'm gonna like, crack open an avocado, make myself a little, like a little salad and when I'm taking this nourishment into my body, I'm thanking the earth, right, for providing this nourishment.
Beautiful.
But in the same token, what else can I do to offer this reciprocation, you know? So it's the questions I keep on asking is every time I receive a gift from someone, something, first I think it's being mindful, oh my gosh, I'm getting this gift. Like there's a gift in this avocado that I get to cut open and have. It's so I had this moment that was almost kind of like out of body the other day where I'm like, dang, this avocado tastes so good. And I had microdose that morning, so I have a feeling that the sacred mushroom came in and was just like helping to amplify, like see how buttery goodness, good this avocado is. So to me, it's like a little treasure. I now have that consciousness, like I'm going to value every bite of this avocado, and yes, it's just an avocado, but I mean, it's like gold, and
Totally.
it's so good. So for me, the question that I ask is, how am I treating the earth? How do I give back to the earth? When I travel to a new place, what I've started to do, I didn't always do this, but I give land offerings, like I honor the land for just receiving me, hosting me, and allowing me to be there to receive the wisdom that I get to have, to receive the experience that I get to have on that land. And, I think it's just about consciousness. It's about
Yeah.
awareness. Like if you go to a friend's house, you usually bring something if they invite you to dinner. There's
Yes.
there's this kind of practice of, thank you so much for your hospitality. Here's a bottle of wine. Here's a, whatever that gift is. And I feel like that is so important, these little gestures, because it's acknowledgement that I'm receiving something from you. I'm receiving your heart. I'm receiving your love in some sort of way. So to me, I feel like respect for all beings comes around to that, seeing every plant, every flower, every tree, every animal, every piece of the land, like everything is as living as you are. Everything is as worthy of respect as you are. So it's about not taking it for granted and
Yeah.
offering gifts and reciprocation when you're able to. So, do I do it all the time? Do I have that consciousness all the time? Absolutely not.
Right.
I'm human.
Right.
And if I have a really busy day and I'm like so sucked into my tunnel, yeah, it's like all that stuff goes out the window. But then I see myself, I recalibrate, and I offer myself grace, and I come back the next day and I try to be more conscious about it. So every moment's an opportunity.
So I think that's really honest, and it's really what every person in the world would feel. And if anybody else would say anything other than that, I would probably go, yes, thank you very much, and goodbye. But part of what I'm wondering is the sacred medicine that you take help to bring that feeling along to you as well? Because
Absolutely.
I used to take sacred medicine before it was called sacred medicine in college, years ago. Uh, and it definitely, I would look at my perception of reality clearly shifted, and I saw things that I didn't see. I remember coming to this tree and just seeing these gorgeous yellow flowers on the tree, and a friend of mine came over, and I said, "Oh my God, you can't walk just past this. Take a minute and just see these gorgeous yellow flowers." And he looked at me. He said, "Where, Denny? There's no yellow flowers on that tree." And I was as sure as I was seeing him that they were there. and and they were there for me in the reality that I was choosing to live in that moment. But like, the medicine also gives me a perception that what I see is not all that there is to see. Right. And so I'm assuming that's what happens for you in the work that you take people to, just the sheer embracing that there's another reality happening simultaneously to this reality in this moment. And dimensionally, the more dimensions we change, the more those realities change with us.
Yes. Yes.
Is that correct?
Absolutely. And I feel like many realities, right? There's
Yes.
many realities that we can kind of tap into and receive whatever the medicine is of that particular reality. So yeah, absolutely. I find that, the sacred mushrooms specifically, they act as amplifiers. So whatever energy is within, whatever energy is around you, it amplifies that. And so you seeing those beautiful yellow flowers on that tree, you're picking up on the energy of that tree. And perhaps your friend was not necessarily
Oh,
like plugged into that particular frequency. And that's okay,
totally.
Um, So this is why I think when you do walk with the sacred mushroom, or really any of these entheogenic medicines, intention setting is everything. You set your intention, you bring the frequency that you want to embody into your body. You practice embodying that. You practice meditating and connecting to those frequencies. And, I think a lot of people, clarity is something that I feel like a lot of people come to the medicine for. Like, I need clarity. I need clarity and I need to know where I'm going. And I always kind of laugh because the medicine always shows them something that is so clear, and yet it's so not exactly what
Right.
the question was.
Yeah.
It's they kind of have their own sense of humor and amusement about it, and that's what I love about them. They're called the sacred little children. I do feel like it's very like kid-like energy, um, and they kind of you know they're not afraid to be funny and amusing and a little bit cheeky. So yeah, that's I feel like intention setting is how you arrive at what you need.
I want to be respectful of your time. And if you have time, I want to know about how someone contacts you, how what's involved with getting involved with taking some sacred medicine with you. Over where does that happen? Does it happen? Is it virtual? Is it physical? Is it and because I can't imagine somebody hearing this and not wanting to have you work with them.
It would be an honor to walk with anybody who's ready and wanting to walk together.
Well, I'm going to
Um,
encourage it, and I'm going to talk to you under separate cover about figuring out how we do it in the
yeah.
best possible way. Because I just first of all, I just love your energy,
Thank you.
and it feels very familiar to me. And I would trust you to walk me through some of the steps that I would walk through. And that's super important for anybody that's listening. You have to find someone that you honor and trust,
Mm,
because you're going to go to places where you don't go normally,
right.
right? And so there's a reason you don't go to those places, because you're scared shitless to do it
Yeah.
for most of us, right?
Right. I still get nervous every trip I take, every
Yeah.
journey I take. So it's you're stepping into the unknown, and so that always comes with a little bit of those butterflies. Um, I typically journey with people in Idlewild if they choose to come up here. It's a little mountain town nestled in the San Jacinto Mountains, about 6,000 feet up. And it's a pine forest. So you're surrounded by nature. And so for me, the frequency and the energy up here is just so perfect. And you also have this mountain. I stare up at Talkwitch Mountain, and the mountain just anchors you in this safe energy for you to be able to travel wherever you need to go. And there is something about also being able to witness the stars. I can't tell you how many journeys I've had where I've sat and just stared at the stars or stared at the moon and truly received like activations from these, celestial bodies. It's like pretty magic. So Idlewild's a place. I also offer medicine in Los Angeles, and I tend to work with people privately, one-on-one, though I am also open to groups of 2 or 3 or 4, like 4 being the max. Um, and so, yeah, it happens in both places. In Los Angeles, my loft in the Arts District in downtown, I find this is, again, one of those things that came through a mushroom journey as well, where I realized looking through the trajectory of what brought me to that particular unit with this beautiful tree that used to sit outside. This tree actually spoke to me and said, you know, do you see how I was your first teacher in learning how to sit with the medicine just by anchoring you here in this space? It was the most incredible. I was facilitating somebody at the time, and her spirit came through in just the most beautiful way. So that's also a place that I offer for people who feel a little bit more nervous about it and want to be in the safety of their homes. I also, if they're within the Los Angeles or the mountain area, then I can travel there as well. So
Fabulous.
I always kind of give that as another option too.
Fabulous.
But yeah, you can look on my website to find out all the details.
Fabulous. 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 What haven't we touched that you think is important to touch, if anything?
Um, I think we covered everything. I just want to also lift up that if you, these macrodose journeys I'm talking about are in person. If you are somebody who would like a more consistent community to journey with, I offer a medicine membership where twice a month we meet, one for a virtual medicine breathwork journey. So we work with either cannabis or you can work with a microdose of the sacred mushroom, not a full macrodose journey. But we also do breathwork together. And so the combination of breathwork with these medicines is potent. And you're breathing to a playlist. And so people go quite deep in this virtual space. And it's a very safe, small, intimate container. And then we meet once a month for integration as well. So that is also offered in case you want to journey in the safety of your own home. And especially if you're not local to California or Southern California, this is a really great option. And 100% of those proceeds go into scholarships for my private offerings, which includes a 13-week mentorship program called the Death and Rebirth program, where I guide people through their death portals and we walk together. We leverage a lot of these somatic modalities to really just gently meet our edges and our fear, to see what's there and to breathe through it and to learn how to be with a lot of the discomfort that may come through as we are being challenged through all the different things in our lives, so that we can actually learn to live the lives that we really want.
And so for anyone who would say, well, I'm a little scared to do that at a distance because you're, through a Zoom call or whatever, and you're not right here, what would you say to them to ease their come to your space and do it, right?
Yeah.
Or
Are you
bring me
talking
to
about
your space and I'll do it at your space.
the for the medicine journeys?
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are always in person. All macrodose journeys have to be in person.
Okay, great.
I do offer cannabis journeys virtually. That particular medicine is a little bit more gentle,
Yeah.
and she allows you to have a little bit more agency. So that can be done virtually, and I show you what medicine to purchase and all that kind of stuff too. But when it comes to the sacred mushroom, yeah, those are always in person.
There is so much I want to talk with you about how to blow this, to a bigger audience if possible. Um, uh, but we'll put that in we can have a conversation. I'm assuming we can
Yeah,
talk in general.
absolutely.
Um, I want to deeply thank you. I knew today would be really kind and nice and good, but I feel really deeply touched by you and the work you're doing. And I really want to thank you personally and globally for giving the care that you give. And I'm serious. I want to talk with you about are you training people? Are you, like, how does this mushroom out? Pardon my use of the pun.
The perfect metaphor.
Right? How do we mushroom it out? Because there are a lot of people in a lot of grief,
Mhm,
and it's unresolved,
mhm.
and it causes lots of problems.
Yeah,
And like, I don't get that grief has to not be there.
yeah.
It's just, for me, it's part of the mosaic of our life, right? And there's always that grief that's there that is poignant,
Mhm.
so that I can have the joy that I want over here that's also poignant. But it's not like a single shot that I have to get down in one, because it's the whole mosaic is a feeling is there. I don't know if what I'm saying is your experience.
100%. Yeah. it's honoring the full spectrum. We
Yeah.
have these feelings for a reason, even anger and things like that too. They all play a role, they all play a part. And so it's about honoring the full spectrum of your humanity.
So as anyone who's listening can tell, you can tell I have a lot of respect for Ellen. I very rarely give an endorsement like I've given, and I gave it really without knowing that much. It's a feeling, and those feelings are, when I feel those things, I go to a place inside me to check if those feelings are real or just make pretend. And I know most of the time when it's real. This is real. And so I highly, highly encourage you, if you're intrigued by what happened, to get in touch with her, to see what she offers that could be beneficial, and to invite a new life in. I mean, I'm getting older, so I know what a new life starts to look like. This life starts to fall apart, and a new life is coming. And I will definitely get in touch with you about seeing how we play together. Because I would also like to figure out if there's a way we can actually play together in the work that we do as well. So, okay. Big love.
Thank you so much.
I mean, I really feel deeply, a deep love for you. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the space. These conversations they give life, they're very nourishing. So I just appreciate you so much.
Ditto, ditto, ditto. Okay, my beautiful friend. I will speak with you soon. And thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers to everybody. Thank you for listening in. Enjoy it. Please, let me say again, get in touch with Ellen. And it's, whatever you do, have a glorious life. It's really time. So enjoy it. Ciao. Big love.